Hi everyone, it's Gigabeef here, and today we're going to be looking at a practical guide to recoil and how best to control it. Without changing anything about the weapon, we're looking to reduce this to get to something that looks more like this through our movements alone. Controlling recoil in EFT is something that you just get better at over time, however there are some quirks with the Tarkov system that makes it difficult when starting out. So stick around and let's get going. So practically speaking, recoil in Tarkov is a little different to other games. Contrasting to a game like PUBG, where weapons apply continuous vertical recoil that you need to control for, Tarkov has some inbuilt control within the spray pattern itself as you fire. This has always been quite contentious in the community, as you have to kind of fight against the system itself, rather than having a fixed parameter which you can then control manually in the skill of combat. I think this is the main reason why you see so many posts from newer players finding out that their FPS skills from other games just don't seem to cross over to Tarkov at the beginning. But that's how it is, so we just gotta work with it. The primary and most noticeable effect of recoil in Tarkov is how it makes the weapon's muzzle rise and then fall slightly again as full auto gets underway. Firing with 60 round mags makes it the most obvious, and we'll start with the M4. I'll show a comparison to the stock AKM a bit later on, but the principles are the same for pretty much all of the weapons. For reference, we're using a gun with 56 recoil, so not terrible, but definitely middling in terms of what's possible. Also for full disclosure, I have a recoil control of 11 on my PMC. This skill affects recoil in a dramatic way with minus 46% at max level. Mine gives me minus 10%. So as we open fire, the muzzle rises dramatically. This hits a peak level before it starts to descend again and stabilise at a middle ground until firing is over, and then it drops back to the original mouse cursor point. This is what makes burst fire so awful in EFT, as you get the greatest muzzle climb in those first few rounds. This drives us as players to use semi-auto for range, and full auto fire close up over burst shots, as it's actually much more controllable. As you can see here, the first 4 or 5 shots gets us to the maximum height of the spray pattern, which means you have to do a lot of work if you're starting and resetting this pattern all the time in burst. What we need to think about now is exactly how to control this. The best way of thinking about it is to reverse the pattern that we see here with the mouse. When we first start to fire, we have to pull down to compensate, which is the largest movement that we have to make. The gun barrel will then lower itself roughly halfway of the way back to the starting position, so we should actually push up halfway as well to adjust for this. Using both of these actions, we now should be able to dramatically improve the targeting of our auto fire. Let's jump over to the AK as well. This is an AKS-74N with a recoil of 58, so 2 higher than the M4. Notice however that the recoil on this gun is actually a bit less than that of the M4. This is down to the difference in fire rate between the guns. The AK gets more time to reset after each shot, which changes the recoil profile of the weapon, but does increase the time to kill. The same principle applies here. Move down on the way up, and tweak up as the recoil stabilizes to bring your shots on target. One other element that I wanted to mention was strafing. You can see here that as I move my PMC around, the aim point of the barrel actually moves from side to side. I find that this effect causes me to miss a lot at mid-range fights when I'm trying to hip fire and move around to try and not get shot as easily. As you move your PMC to the left, the point of aim will move to the right, which means we also need to aim left as well to compensate. Same goes for right, so just remember to adjust your aim slightly in the direction of the movement change. There's a short delay before the barrel position change actually takes place, so ideally you change position and then move the mouse a little afterwards. Try it out and you'll see what I mean. Adjusting for this is actually quite hard to do at the same time as controlling recoil, and I certainly could do with the practice as much as anyone else. The shooting range in the hideout comes in very handy for trying this out and getting more experience with it through checking out different builds and how they perform, as it's so fast to load in with different setups. However, you can also test these in offline mode. Although it's not quite as quick, I advise factory because it loads the fastest. Remember, in both of these modes you don't expend any of your actual rounds, so there's nothing lost by trying it out. I remember when I first started, I found combat such a struggle because you get into fights fairly infrequently, and when you don't know the maps, people get the jump on you all the time, and so practice was limited in fighting other people. In short, I didn't use the offline mode anywhere near enough to try things out and get comfortable with a couple of weapons and builds, such as the power of hindsight. I hope that you can use these tips to improve your accuracy and weapon control, and let me know if you have any tips of your own in the comments, as I'd love to hear them. We didn't go into all the intricate mechanics of recoil here, but the idea is to give you some practical advice to help with placing your shots on target, which is ultimately what Tarkov comes down to at the end of the day. So please remember to sub and hit the bell if you want to see more. You can also follow me on Twitter, and I stream on Twitch Wednesdays, Fridays and Saturday evenings UK time. Until then, I'll see you next time, and as always, have fun in your raids.